Well, good afternoon. My name is Mark Maynard, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the Washington Labs Academy webinar series. We hope you will find the next hour useful and informative. We have developed this monthly International Approvals webinar series to deal with some of the technical and administrative issues that our customers face when obtaining global marketplace product approvals for electronics and electrical devices. We recognize that compliance engineering and certification challenges can be complex, and we're always looking for ways to support our customers. Before we begin, I want to go over a few housekeeping details. First, I hope everyone can see the title slide on your computer. And my slide doesn't want to advance. What is going on? Okay. Give me just a second here. I'm having a little difficulty with this. Okay, there we go. We have muted everyone's microphone to keep the meeting quality as high as possible. Recording of the presentation is underway and will be sent to all attendees. Full screen view may be preferred. Just select view and full screen, then you can use escape to return to normal view. We encourage questions during the presentation. You can submit a question by enabling the chat or Q&A icon located at the top or side of your screen and typing the question to the host. We will go through all the questions at the end of the presentation as time permits. We'd like to hear from you. You can see contact information here, and at the end of the presentation, please reach out via email to academy@wll.com or to the speakers directly. You can also contact us on our website at wll.com. We estimate this presentation will take about 1 hour, including some time for questions at the end. I am your presenter for today. I'm the Training Business Development Manager for Washington Labs, and also work at ACB as International Approvals and Business Development Manager. I have over 30 years experience compliance in RF engineering, starting with my career in the Army and military intelligence, maintaining transmitters, receivers, and computer systems. My specialties include MCMI, wireless telecom approvals, product safety, design for environment, quality management systems. Also a senior member of the IEEE and immediate past president of the Product Safety Engineering Society of the IEEE, and also very active with the EMC Society's annual symposium, which will be held in New Orleans this coming year. Apologize for my clumsiness here. Our WebEx has just updated their panels, and I missed the controls on where they had the slide advance, but I've found them now. We're going to talk about some vocabulary here. So local representative or local rep. If you're new to international approvals, a lot of countries require that you have a local representative on the ground. Say for the European Union, it requires you to have one in one of the member states. So if you have an office in Belgium for your company, that can serve as a local rep. And in fact, if you do have a presence there, you need to use that. But if you don't, you can hire some places or bonded agents or registered agents to act as local representative in that country. GDP PPP is one of the things I point out in here, and especially when I'm comparing different market countries in the same presentation. Just a rough measure for the purchasing power per person in that country, and so you can see if it's a good place for your products. Population is just gauging the population ranking and kind of a rough idea of what your potential customer base is going to be. I do want to acknowledge all the maps, photos, flag artwork, and country demographic information are courtesy of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, obtained from their World Factbook, which is a free access site located at the URL given here. And the only thing they require is indicate their copyright notice that all this belongs to this website, and just wanted to, as long as I give them credit, they're okay with us using it. Today we're going to go over Japan's compliance infrastructure. We're going to spend most of our time on the radio and telecom agency. That's the MIC agency, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication. I know it should be a four-letter acronym, but this is how they refer to themselves. And then we'll talk some at the beginning about the BCCI EMC approvals. If you're in IT equipment or anything with a processor, you're probably familiar with that. And then some of the product safety requirements for this country. So Japan is a centrally located in the Asia-Pacific region, right next to China, Russia, and Korea, as you can see right there, just north of Taiwan, and have been a really leading country as far as technical advancements and products there. A good market for a lot of countries to get into. Fifth largest in the world for GDP, PPP, so if you're starting to branch out, this will probably be one of the first countries you branch out to after the European Union and some other large markets like Brazil, the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And large exporter, large importer, very advanced, stable economy, and one of the largest marketplaces for high-tech products. Most of their population lives in urban areas. Very high percentage. In fact, they're having, last visit there, they were telling me they're having a hard time finding farmers anymore. Nobody wants to farm there, and so they're having issues with that. Median age, 47.3 years. Just want to point out that's pretty old median age, and they do have their population is actually decreasing. And so they've got an aging population, very educated population, an average of 15 years of school. High number of early tech adapters and large industrial base there for product development and manufacturing. So we're going to jump into BCCI, and this is their logo, the Voluntary Control Council for Interference. It's a nonprofit membership organization. If you're a manufacturer, you can join. It is the Japan EMC agency for IEEE equipment, information technology equipment, so computers, anything with a processor. And even though it's voluntary certification, it is a market required for many customers, including government and many large corporations. I worked at Dell for 20 years, and this was definitely true for us. Any government accounts wanted that BCCI as proof of compliance, and a lot of the larger international, multinational corporations would require it too on their bids. Their main purpose is given on the website is the purpose of council and cooperation with its members is through voluntary measures to prevent electronic interference arising from information technology equipment. Electronic interference, we're talking about electromagnetic interference and electromagnetic compatibility with other products. So their main functions of the organization is restoration of member measurement facilities as test labs, and so for conformity assessments, just like the FCC does for test labs. Members' own self-declaration of conformity, or the SDOC verification report, is filed to the BCCI, but the manufacturer has to retain copies of that, and they're responsible for maintaining that. The BCCI does perform market surveillance to ensure the continued compliance of the criteria while it's there. So they might order one, online, and they might go to a retail store in Japan where they can purchase one from, or they might go to the manufacturer's assembly plant in Japan and pull one off the line to test. So the test lab to be used for BCCI conformance test must be registered prior to starting a test. So if your lab tells you they're in the process of getting it, they can't begin testing until they've received it. So make sure you verify that. They should be able to provide you a copy of their certificate, PDF form, and you can check that registration against the BCCI website, and I'll be giving you the URLs for that in a little bit. So there's two ways you can get your test lab registered, either by directly by the BCCI in Japan, or by accreditation by VLAC or JAB. These are two accreditation bodies in Japan. So that's basically the 17025 quality management system, plus the additional BCCI technical rules that apply. It's a member-selected option in Japan, whether it's a certification or accreditation. Does allow U.S. labs. There's a MRA, a mutual recognition agreement between U.S. and Japan on telecom. 2007, it was more or less formalized so that BCCI, Japan companies are allowed to get certified or accredited by the FCC to do FCC testing in Japan, and we are also in the U.S. are allowed to get accredited for doing BCCI testing. Conformity self-declaration, that's a verification by the manufacturer. It's tested in the accredited test lab for the U.S.-Japan MRA requirements, and they're going to utilize the BCCI's test lab registration system. So you demonstrate compliance, and 3-meter testing is allowed. The BCCI guidelines for test reports, it's available on BCCI members website, the members section. You must be a member to access. So if you go to this URL I'm giving you, if you're not a member, you're not going to be able to get into it. However, for instance, at Dell, once you had a membership, anybody that was a Dell employee could access that and get this information. Reports must include all necessary and sufficient items to show compliance. It's the same things you're used to on your FCC and your EE reports, all the required radiated conducted tests, any emissions interference tests that they require. So it's very similar in format to the FCC EMC compliance report. So it includes multiple procedures and guidance, and all these are available in the member section. Selection of measurement method, selection of ISN or impedance stabilization network, selection of transmission rate or which communications mode you're using, the grounding of the EUT and peripherals, and software used for communications. So these are all items that are going to be contained in reports, and you've got to make sure that when they're doing their audits and market surveillance, that they're able to, create the same conditions as it was originally tested in. So in summary, this applies to ITE equipment, and for the test labs, they have to get registered. And the purpose of this agency is for EMI, EMC, to make sure. So it's a self-declaration of conformity, and you've got a choice of which way the lab get accredited, and accreditation bodies have also got to be accredited. So it's owned by the BCCI members, and your conformity verification is for each test report kept by model. So each different model has to have its own test report. Next, we're going to look at MIC, or the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication. They've got a lot of information on the website, and I provide a lot of links on that in this section. So I'm just talk about introduction to MIC if you haven't dealt with them before, and Japan radio law updates, and the MIC market surveillance, and the body style regulations, and then some recent updates. Every year in either the February or March, MIC has a workshop, 2-day workshop in conjunction with BCCI that generally has a 1-day workshop added on to the end of it. We can go get information directly from the regulators from MIC and the associated agencies that do that, and it's a really good way to network and find out what's coming up. As jurisdiction over these agencies, they're involved in the communications, but what we're particularly looking at is Telecommunications Bureau, which has authority over the wireless and telecom aspects. So radio equipment is classified in 3 categories, and there's different classes within each one. So unlicensed, which is the majority of items you're looking at, is going to be category 1. Category 2 is like licensed stations, so this is going to be more higher level, like radio station equipment, cell tower repeaters, those kind of things that the consumers normally are not going to use. Then licensed stations are things like radio stations that are authorized to use those specific frequencies, specific power levels. So within categories for TTE, or telecom terminal equipment, this is central office cell phone equipment, anything that's hardwired connects to their phone system. Just like in the U.S., FCC Part 68 wants to make sure that you're not interfering with the telephone exchange system, you're not bringing down any exchanges, you're not interfering with other people's calls, and it's the same type of equipment they're looking at there. Terminal equipment for phone calls, and other types of terminal equipment is, fax modem, and then There's one that has a combined, so that might be like a fax that has a phone installed on it. So you have to make sure you're classified in the right category for the functions that your product supports. The licensing procedure, very similar to the FCC. You're going to start with the application after you've done all your testing and everything, and make sure it's in conformity to the requirements, and they're going to review it and get it back to you once it's got in there. Certification system. There's registered certification bodies that are authorized to do this. For instance, our sister company, American Certification Body, is registered certification body with MIC, and so they can directly do these, just like an FCC PCB can do it for the FCC. Japan MIC RCBs can do it for the MIC agency, directly grant certifications and approvals for these products. Next, we're looking at certification bodies. So these are like very similar TCP program here in the U.S. They're like the telecommunications certification body, but they're called registered certification bodies. They've got to be registered with the MIC agency, and they've got to meet all the criteria. They've got to be experienced, knowledgeable, have all the necessary test equipment, calibrating up to date. They got to be impartiality, and you got to have no previous convictions or revocations, restorations. So if you've been kicked out of the program, you're not allowed to come back. We're all a registered certification body. It's going to have to renew those registrations every 5 years. Conduct examinations upon request. So if MIC says you've got to examine something that you certified, then you've got to go back and retest. Notify MIC of appointment or removal of the officers or certification examiners. So anytime there's personnel change, they want to ensure that everybody's trained and qualified. And you got to establish your quality management system, the operation rules and procedures, prepare and retain financial statements, and prepare and retain records related to the certification services. So for all your tests, and then you've got to renew your registration when it's time. So they're trying to make sure, just like the FCC is, they're protecting the frequency spectrum, make sure your emergency communication channels like police, fire, radio, emergency service like ambulance are free, military you're not impinging on, and those types of activities for spectrum management. And so the certifications are granted by the registered certification bodies, not by MIC. And then there are over 20 domestic and foreign RCBs, including ACB. I think 29 RCBs attended the last meeting in March of this year. So they deal with 1,000 certifications a year, and test methods are you can get from the MIC radio use website. You don't have to be a member, but you can go in and download them there, the URL provided, and see what they are. And they are similar to the FCC test methods. So they're going to carry out market surveillance every year. Doesn't mean every product's going to be looked at every year, but they are going to be looking at some every year. You're going to purchase samples of TTE equipment as they become available on the market, and they're going to look at conformity to technical standards. If they find any non-compliances, the vendor or dealer has to take corrective action. And MIC is going to post notices publicly when non-compliance has been found. So it might have undocumented changes in certified equipment. Maybe you changed out a processor or change your clock speeds. Wrong test methods applied. False fake report was created. That's been a more recent problem, and they're doing some things to try to change that. If the model name is changed and not presented to the certification body. Emergency call configuration, that's violation method, so it interferes with emergency channels, and they've got an issue with it. For radios, they're going to look at make sure the label is right. The real sticklers on label for this, and because that gives traceability back to the RCB and the actual certification for the manufacturer. Any non-compliance is found, make requests of vendor take corrective actions, and they're also going to publish any violations for the radio. MIC is really interested in body SAR. specific absorption rate of just like the FCC is, and these are things like cell phones that are held next to the head, things that are held next to the body, wearables, devices. With all the IoT, there's all kinds of wearable devices now, Bluetooth headsets. So they're going to have to meet these requirements. So they've got 2 watts per kilogram limits on this, is slightly higher than the FCC. Body SAR regulations added to existing regulation in April 2015, following the implementation of the head SAR. And SAR values average in 10 grams of tissue over a 6-minute period, slightly different than the FCC methods. And all transmitters within the same enclosure must be taken into account. So there's simultaneous transmitting going on in real life, then it needs to go on while they're testing it. Anything that consumes less than 20 milliwatts of electrical power are excluded and deemed to comply. So there are some exemptions, but you need to make sure you're working with your RCB to ensure that. So this applies to mobile phones, satellite phones, cell phones, broadband wireless access devices, including tablets. Anything else in that containing a radio device that uses a mobile phone and a broadband wireless. So your iPads, if you can use that as a phone, then it's got to be used by SAR also. So standalone 2.4 gigahertz WLAN or low power radio equipment is excluded. Standalone 5 gigahertz excluded as scope of the body SAR regulations also. And so this is not a cell phone. Like a cell phone has WLAN it's not excluded. It's still got to be tested. But standalone is like a router station, Wi-Fi repeater or something along that. That means the person's not going to normally be standing next to it. So it doesn't apply to PHS or digital cordless phones who combine the same enclosure with radio transmitters and act as a mobile phone, satellite, cellular, or broadband wireless access device. So here's a look at it. So their head SAR requirements compared to their body SAR requirements, and what's encompassed in there are types of products. So you see land mobile station, broadband, mobile, mobile stations, portable mobile earth stations, all under head SAR. And then body SAR has all those requirements plus the digital cordless phone, personal handy phone system, or the low power data communications system with WLAN, Bluetooth, Zigbee, or whatever other kind of transmitters you have in there. So that's what these arrows doesn't mean there's not these requirements. That means these are the requirements also. So body SAR has these 3 plus the bottom 3 here. So radio modules such as USB sticks have their own enclosure, a defined integral antenna, so an internal antenna, and a well-defined connector can be evaluated for body SAR as a module. So they do have some module type approvals. Radio modules which are intended to be integrated into a host equipment cannot be evaluated for body SAR. The evaluation for body SAR needs to be carried out on the entire piece of equipment. So if it's going to be integrated with something, you've got to test the entire system. So let us repeat. So I think I have the same thing twice there. So so for radio modules, if they've been certified radio part, only assess compliance with body SAR. In this point of attention, each registered certification body decides whether it will admit some parts of the examination, what parts admit, so on. So that's the RCB makes that decision, not the customer or the manufacturer who's bringing the device to them. They're responsible, just like a TCB is responsible for making those technical decisions. So the test procedures for body SAR are based on IEEE 62209-2, the international standard, and the tissue parameters for the simulated body are the same as the tissue parameters using the EU, but the defined frequency range is slightly different. And since the test method is based on this standard, head tissue parameters are used for creating a body liquid. Typical use of head tissue parameters used during body SAR measurement leads to an overestimation of the measured SAR value, so that's why they do that. So just an example of what a typical label is going to look like. It's got the radio symbol here, and then the RCB is identified by a 3-digit code. There's a dash separating these two numbers. The second number is the MIC certificate number, and so that relates it back to the manufacturer. So you've got the RCB notified here, and then the manufacturer is identified through the certification number. So some new requirements, as I mentioned, they had a workshop in March of this year, just like they do every year. So things that were implemented this year, starting April 1st, they're going to have to, RCB is going to submit 3 additional reporting documents. So that's a test report, separate exterior photos, and a separate copy of the certificate. And that's to countermeasure against the issue. Fake test reports has become a big issue in the Asia Pacific region, where people are photoshopping and PDFs and just changing the names and to protect the guilty, I guess, and sending them back out there. There's been cases of signatures being left there from actual RCBs and making it look like stuff, but the RCBs never tested it, never saw it, don't know anything about it, and so it's a fake test report. So on July 1st, the new MIC database system was launched, and it's being implemented in 3 stages. The first stage, we're in the 3rd stage now, so as for certs dated prior to March 15th or on March 15th, and there was a range from April 1st to June 30th, but now since July 1st, everything that was dated on after June 16th has to be in the new database. And that's a way you can go research, and they can find them for market surveillance. So upcoming changes, and this is, I mentioned, from the MIC workshop. It's held in Tokyo like it is every year. So new documentation reporting requirements, submit test report information, external photos, copy certificate made public. For unlicensed radio equipment category is certified instruction type and where the testing was conducted by a test lab other than RCB's lab or the subcontractor lab. And as I mentioned, no implementation dates are given for these. And then some other, for telephone terminal equipment, RCBs for terminal equipment receive a notice to submit the information when they're auditing the records. And MIC will provide advance notice so the RCBs can ensure they have the records read and they're prepared to submit that. And the audit scope covers all terminal equipment certified today. So there's things that will be coming. Let you know as soon as we get some dates. If you need more info, as mentioned, they've got a really good English versions of the website. So the MIC homepage is the first URL here. And then the MIC website on radio use is here and has a lot of the test standards and information on how to get your certificates. And then the radio equipment regulation certification system you can find here on how to make those applications. Now, finally, we're going to look at a little bit at product safety requirements and the DNAN mark and the PSC safety marks. This is all under the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry, or META, M-E-T-I. Now, for most manufacturers, the main thing they're going to be looking at is like power cords. Is got to have this PSC mark on them, and so are in these categories A and B, and so these are the marks for the trapezoid one here is for category A, the circle is for category B. Some things are not covered, so make sure that you verify your product category. As you notice, the examples not covered: cell phones, desktop computer, built-in power supply. So the overall product or power cord is may be tested, but not the individual power supply. Category A for specific electrical supplies and materials. So this is your thing like power adapters, or what we call wall warts. They have a little transformer in there and converts it to a rough DC voltage that goes to the computer. Power distribution units or power strips, refrigerated vending machines, children's electric toys, those kind of things. There's 116 categories in there, or listings as they call them. And And my window with the slide advance has gone away. I apologize for this, but as mentioned, they have changed some things recently on WebEx. Hang on a minute, I'm changing something here. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen now, and I apologize for this. I had to switch to share my screen view. Evidently, WebEx has some more bugs to work out on their new update. Okay, and now we're looking at some additional information on Category A. Specific electrical supplies materials are shown by certificate of conformity, as the trapezoid you see here, and it must be from a METI authorized retrofitted conformity assessment body or RCAB, and that's authorized by the META agency. Category B is for items not in Category A, which I guess you would seem obvious, but approval is not mandatory. So this is a voluntary category, but the products still have to meet their criteria. Certificate of conformity is the best way to show compliance, or manufacturers can provide confirmation. So you can declare confirmation yourself and provide proof of it. So this is AV equipment, lighting equipment, electric kitchen equipment, hair dryers, amongst your appliances, types of things like that. So the technical criteria for the PSC marking approval is found in META order number 85. So products fall under province order 1 or 2 is for order 1 is for devices use non-harmonized Japan standards. Those are specific to Japan. And item 2 is ones using IEEE international standards with the Japan deviations. Process is dependent on if for applying for an application is it a Japanese company or a foreign company. Now under the WTO, this is supposed to have been eliminated, but Japan being Japan, we got these two separate systems. Japanese companies are defined under Article 9. Foreign companies have to go into laws under Article 13. Applicant, if it's local Japanese company, it's got to be a notifying supplier. So it's going to be a Japanese manufacturer or importer of electrical appliances and materials. Once it's submitted a business report to META as defined in Law Article 3, and RCAB will issue conformity assessment. If passed, will issue the COC. It's a foreign company. This covers all non-Japanese legal entities. So if it's a non-Japanese company, for instance, Dell, when they went through this process, RCAB is going to issue a report detailing conformity of the product with DNAN Law Article 13. And assuming it passes a conformity assessment and is based on the report, they're going to issue a COC also. Factory inspection is required for each new product application. So every time you submit a product, they're going to do a factory inspection. Includes inspection of factory test equipment, so maybe your high pot and your overvoltage testers. Each factory must be inspected prior to certification, and follow-up inspections must be performed every 2 years. So summary for DNAN. So it's specific electrical appliances are required, and some others are voluntary. So they're looking for safety and disturbance. The regulator and the authority for it is META. You use a SDOC for the mandatory and a conformity inspection needed. Accreditation body for the mandatory is META, and there are no requirements if you're not if you're voluntary, fall under voluntary standards. Laboratories have to be designated for mandatory equipment and don't have to be for voluntary. And then the owner registration is based on product type classification. And you've got to keep those inspection records just like you do for BCCI and MIC. Some websites for you. Or repeating a couple on here, but the MIC website, their homepage is found there. If you want to inquire about BCCI membership for your company, if you're a product development company that does IEEE equipment and a manufacturer, you can go there and inquire about joining and get access to the members only site. The MIC website, English language, that's their homepage, and at the end of the MIC presentation, I gave you some more specific ones for the radio laws and procedures. Meta-Denon law website in English language, so you can find product safety requirements. And for some of the stuff that's in Japanese language only, I found that Google Translate does a pretty good job, but you got to remember that it's not an official translation. So don't do Google Translate on a standard and think that's going to be official translated standard that you can follow for testing. You've got to have official translations, and there are some on the Meta website. You can find links to companies that can do that or provide those translated standards. So it's a very attractive global market. So you got to face these challenging mix of cultural laws and regulations. They are sticklers for their rules, and they do not like to make deviations from those. So make sure you've got a good experienced partner and getting your Japan approvals, and you've got all your ducks in a row and everything's ready to go. Occasionally, trade issues can present challenges, we've seen recently. And another good way to get information, join industry affinity groups like the IEEE. I found that within the IEEE, the MC Society and the Product Safety Society are the best for getting this type of information. TCBC is the TCB Council that works with the FCC, in Canada's ISCD, and international organizations such as EU and Japan MIC to on telecom wireless issues. ITU's International Telecom Union. These are all good places to get information on these changes that might be coming up for different regions of the world. So now I'm going to take a look at questions and see what we've got here. Okay. Are there exemptions from equipment used in military applications requirements you'll be reviewing today? Yes, there are. As I mentioned, BCCI is a voluntary, and the military is going to be exempt from most of those requirements. It will depend, if you're working with the Japanese military, if they have it in their bid that they want BCCI, testing and labeling, then you're going to have that. For the specific, there are some things that are a lot of military equipment. It's only made for the military. That would fall under a separate category, and especially their transmitters, receivers that have classified forms of communication and frequencies and restricted frequencies, things like that. So I'll see on Q&A. Let me check chat, make sure I haven't got anything there. And I don't see anything in chat. So thanks for joining me today. Just want to tell you about a couple of things. You will get a link to a recording of this if you want to share it with your colleagues or if you missed part of it. It'll be sent out to everybody that registered, whether you attended or not. If you need to get in contact with me for more questions on Japan or questions about your next submittal for approval, you can contact me. The email address here, markm@wll.com. Or for more general inquiries, you can contact info@wll.com, and that's the office phone number and the website. We'd like to tell you, anybody's on the East Coast, keep your heads down, but in November, there's going to be in Boston, just north, it's in the Boston North Shore, Doubletree by Hilton. November 12th and 13th. This is something the Product Safety Engineering Society has been expanding the symposiums. They've been having an annual international symposium, Product Compliance Engineering, every May, and now in November, 6 months later, they're going to start having regional ones. The first region they're starting in is Boston, and I think this has been there for the last couple of years, and it'll be there this year. If you want more information, go to that URL there, spce2018.org. Or you can contact me if you need more information on it. I'd like to tell you about the upcoming webinars next month. We got Taiwan compliance, in November South Korea compliance, and in December we're going to be looking at non-EU European compliance. This is all the European countries that are not members of the European Union. So we'll be looking at things like Russia, some some of the Eastern Bloc, former Eastern Bloc countries that are members of the EAC consortium may have there, which is like an alternative to the EU that Russia tried to start, and that's currently got 5 members, and some other countries that are in there that are not currently European Union countries. You can see more of these listings at the link there, wll.com/us/academy. And we just finalized our 2019 offerings, and they should be posted. They may already be posted, but within a day or so, you should start seeing those out there. I know in January there's going to be one on Australia, and I think February is Australia, New Zealand, and January is going to be on Africa. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you got some good information. Everybody also get a PDF copy of the slide deck that registered, and you should start see that either this afternoon or in the morning. Thanks for joining us, and I hope to see you next time at Washington Labs Academy. Thank you.